Howdy, folks. I'm Rebecca Jolly, the Jolly Alchemist, here for a neutrino forecast for Wednesday, the 8th of October, 2025. Boy, we're getting along on time, aren't we? All right, so let's get right into it because there's so much to say. We are beginning the right angle cross of penetration. We're leaving tension behind. So we're done with the 48 and the 21. Our new grouping starts with gate 57, the gate of intuition. So that's this one right here. And also the earth on the opposite side of that is gate 51. So that is coming out of the ego center, and that is shock or competition, the desire to be first, courage. It's part of this channel of initiation, of really being brought into a new awareness or a new way of being. So we're in the first line, so we're looking at a very inward facing process. And let's just begin with that. 57 line 1, 64 keys calls it intuition, to intuitively grasp the inner meaning. Again, our first lines are always giving us some key information about what that hexagram is really happening, has happening in it, what's really going on with the hexagram. And intuition is about grasping inner meaning. The gate name is called the gentle, and the reason it's called the gentle is because intuition, being based in the splenic center as it is a very gentle kind of wisdom. It's a very gentle kind of knowledge. It's almost the opposite of the emotional center. The emotional center is very punchy. It's very forward. It's right there. You got to confront it. It's like, rah. Whereas intuition is very gentle. It's a very still voice that speaks once. And if you don't pay attention to it, poof, it's gone. And then you're put in the position of going, when something comes out at another stage of it, like, I knew it. Yeah, because you heard that voice of your intuition and didn't pay attention to it. And that's one of the keys that we learn about intuition from this line, is that you have to pay attention to it. You have to start to trust it. You have to work it. You have to allow it to be inside of you, or you're never going to get the benefit of it. You have to begin to trust it. Now, I have this activation myself, a 57 line 1, and so did Ra, who received this information, and I have a really good story about him coming up. But he said that it's very, very difficult for people who have this activation to be able to trust their intuition because it's so weak, because it's so hard to put aside the logic of our brains and let this work inside of us. But if we do let it work inside of us, it can penetrate to the inner meaning. And I'll say more about this, but let me move on to the shock, because then it's about both of them together. So 51 line 1. Oh, and by the way, Ra called this first line not intuition, but confusion. Interesting. Oh, yeah, and there's another little bit about that, because speaking in terms of circuitry, you have the energy coming up from 28. This is the gate of risks. We even have an activation in that today coming in. And the 28 energy, which is an individual energy, comes up, and that's what feeds the 57. So he says it's kind of funny. 28 line 1 is preparation. 57 line 1 is chaos. So you prepare, and what do you get? Chaos. Okay, nice little joke there. So 64 keys calls 51 line 1 experience, the strength derived from the experience of crisis and shock. Ra calls it reference, and the reason he does that is because he says if you have this shock gate, it takes time in order to be able to learn how to deal with it, that shock wave of something happening to you that's very, very shocking. And then what usually happens afterwards is you need time. You need time to recover from that shock. You need time to heal from that shock. And that's a lifelong process that's happening there, and if it's not done properly, if people who carry this energy are not allowed to heal, then their ability to handle future shocks can be affected, and it can break them in significant ways. Another reason why it's very good to know human design. Wouldn't you like to know that about your child or young loved one? If they have this gate, they need to be, bolstered. They need to be uh, supported through their shocks so that they can learn how to handle the shock wave and how to honor the recovery period afterwards. And Ra also has this 51 in line 1, and he said, "Wow, it's a big one. It's a lot." In fact, he also said that it helped him to have 2 activations of the 51st gate because he had the first line and the 5th line. So, like, when he had his experience with the voice, afterwards, he had to completely retreat, pull away from the world, and recover from this huge, massive shock that he had experienced. But having the 5th line of the gate also helped him to be able to stabilize himself and to withstand the shock. And this is the interesting story. He said later on that he had met somebody in Sedona who came to him after one of his talks and brought him a journal and said he had a friend, he wasn't able to be here, and the reason he wasn't able to be here is because he experienced a voice in January of 1987, which is exactly when Ra heard his voice, and had this huge, massive experience, information pouring into him, downloading, and it was so much for him that he was not able to actually handle the shock, and it put him into an insane asylum where he stayed the rest of his life. But he showed him the journal that he had written right after the experience had happened, and it was the same kind of information coming in, which was sort of to him a confirmation, not that he needed it because he knew, but a confirmation that the world was ready for that energy. The transit happened at that time, and that information was sent down to the world, and it was a matter of who can receive it, who can handle the shock. And as it turned out, I guess Ra was the only one. Being a manifester, those manifestors are tough. And I suspect that this other person was not a manifester, and the shock was just too much. He couldn't feed himself, he couldn't take care of himself anymore. He was basically toasted. And he, you know, the journal was all that was left of him. So, we're talking about how it is to deal with shocks. And I thought, well, how do I find either a tie or a song to really exemplify these concepts when you have intuition being so soft and gentle and shock being so different, so forward? But what I realized after thinking about it for a while is that they have a lot in common, just not at the same time, because intuition is gentle, gentle, gentle. But if you're listening to it, and it's an acoustic gate, so everything about the 57 is very acoustic. It's connected to the right ear. And when I discovered this, well, I have 3 activations in 57. So there's a lot going on in 57 for me. This first, the second, and the sixth. I realized, oh my gosh, that's right. I have much better hearing in my right ear than in my left. And that's because of those activations. So now I I listen very differently to people, because if you listen with your right ear to people, you hear different things. And so I've started to lean into that, recognizing that I have all of these intuition, all these intuitional aspects in me. It's like, oh, okay, shit, I've been kind of logical in my life. I need to, let that speak and let that come. And there have been some shocking things that have come to me. So it's gentle, 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 shock when it comes in. Whereas shock is, oh my gosh, shock at the beginning. And then you've got to be gentle, 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 gentle to recover from the shock. So yet these this very clashing of forces there. So I learned a little bit of something about myself and really spending some time thinking about that. But uh yeah, so intuition is weak, but it can bring things that are strong, and shock is strong, but sometimes it can be too strong, so then you really need that time to recover the power of the will afterwards, because unless that will is happening, there you're not going to have much support. So, people energies. And Ra did say, by the way, that the cross of penetration, these people are, in general, the most intuitive people in the world. Very, very sensitive. And he spent a lot of time talking about gate 54, line 4, which I thought was bizarre. One of these left turns that Ra takes a lot of times. But it turns out that's the supporting energy. Remember, we switched from the 3938 on our underneath supporting energy to 5354. And when we get to the second line, then that 54 will move to the fourth line. And he said that is really, really weird. And strangely, I have that activation too. So when he started going on and on at great length about how special and weird it is to have the 54-4, I was like, really? So we'll talk about that as well. But first, let's talk about our people energies, because we have so much to get into, including a global shift. 3-1 is where it begins, and that is synthesis, to create order out of chaos. The third gate is the gate of mutation here, coming out of the sacral center, heading towards the root in this channel of a mutative change, clash of the old and the new. We've been talking about that a lot. And when it's done with 3, it will move into the 27. That's the nurturing gate, the mothering or fathering gate, also coming out of the sacral. And then it moves to 24. Up here, this is what I call the chewing gate, where you have information coming in about the mysteries of the universe, and you want to chew on it over and over and over again. This is the one that keeps people awake at night, going, oh, I can't stop thinking about things, oh, no, like that. And then we will move to gate 2, coming out of the bottom of the G center here, and this is about direction. This is about magnetism. This is the most yin gate. This is 6 broken lines, so it's very receptive, and it's about finding direction, the key for how to move in life. It's what Ra calls the location of the driver. So we're not the passengers in our cars, if you didn't know. We're not the drivers, we are the passengers, and the driver is right there in that second gate, according to Ra. So it's a very mystical, difficult thing to understand, but you don't need to understand at the beginning. Just understand, very important gate. We will be feeling its energy today. So Mars is our next planet here. It's moving from 50, line 6. So 50 is the opposite of that 27 in the gates, where we've been talking about responsibility and values. And so we're going to be leaving that behind for 28, line 1 and 2, which is again about taking risks and this risky behavior. 28, line 1, as I said, is preparation. Intuition for effective and detailed preparation. You prepare so much, and then you get confusion in the 57, energetically speaking. So yeah, we have that, and it will also be moving into the second line today. That is alliance, the acceptance of questionable alliances. So riskiness in the alliances that we accept there. Very interesting kind of energy. Venus starts in 6-1. It was in 47 yesterday. So this is a new activation. And 6-1 is retreat. 6 is, of course, this other end of the 50. It's the beginning of the emotional wave, diplomacy, friction, conflict. 6-1 is retreat from conflict if courage were foolhardy. It will also move into the second line of that gate, which is the gorilla, to find the weakest point. We'll have more to say about that tomorrow, I believe. But that's enough for today. And then our Mars energy is in 44, line 4, which we looked at yesterday, sincerity, leadership with sincerity and impartiality. The 44th gate is this one of coming to me, to collaboration, really looking at situational awareness. And we move from the line 4 into line 5, which is organization, the instinctive recognition of patterns. And it is really pattern recognition that is helping us to find what's going to help us meet the needs and move into the future. So that does make sense. We don't have any not individual, but internal connections being made in the transit energy itself. Of course, it pretty much always connects with something or other that we have in our individual charts, but that's an individual thing, so that's what you'd have to be looking at in your transit as we go along in these reports together. And I did a short on that explaining how you can get the most out of my transits by looking at your transit and how the transit energy is affecting your body while I'm talking about these numbers and planets and all these details going through. All right, let's look at the global shift really quickly. Really quickly. All right, so we have 2 shifts that are happening. The first one is happening in Saturn, moving from 36.6 into 36.5. So the new energy, it's slightly different. Of course, we're in the same gate for both of these. It becomes the underground to survive regardless of conditions. So the 36th gate is the gate of shock, and it's leading to experiences, not shock, crisis. Shock is 51. So it's a part of this emotional experience wave that's happening here. And this part of it is where the experience begins with a crisis, and then you submit to it so that you can learn something later. And in this line of the gate, it's about being able to survive regardless of that crisis, regardless of the conditions. So this is going to give a person a very tough kind of energy to be born with this. Not tough as in difficult, but tough as in they're going to be survivors. They're going to be emotional survivors rather than physical survivors, which is what you get coming out of this splenic center. So I'm a physical survivor. Emotionally, very tender. But physically, I could take a beating. Not that I want to, but I've sort of given beatings to myself in one way or another, and tough enough to take it. But then, of course, I'm also a third line profile, and the third lines are built a little bit tougher because they bump into so very many things. This I can definitely concur with. The other shift that we're having on the global scale is moving. Both of these planets are in retrograde, so they're slowly eking backwards rather than moving forwards like they would. So we have these last 4 planets really kind of stuck. They're not stuck because 2 of them are shifting backwards, but it's a very stable energy that's going on here. I hardly ever even have to talk about the global energies because of it, but it's interesting to see that that's happening. We're moving back into 20 line 1, which is shallowness that accepts slogans. Oh, goody. But it's good to be aware of these things. So we now have attention to detail happening. Then we have this survival regardless of conditions. We have shallowness that accepts slogans. That is in gate 20, and that is the gate of the now, coming down here out of the throat towards the spleen. And then 25, that's innocent healing, and 60, this holding on to traditions and the old ways. So you will definitely be able to see that as you watch the news. I don't, but there's that. So I will talk about the tie and the people tomorrow, but today I just want to give you the song. Again, it was really hard to find a song that I thought really met this, and usually I'm looking for something that's lyric driven, but this one is not. This one's just music. So it's like the recovery from the shock and also that sort of tentative probing that happens in the intuitive self. So it's just a very emotional kind of a piece. And it's such a weird name. I don't even know what it is, but I will spell it for you. The name of the song is Svenf, SVEFN -G Englar, Englar, by Sigur Rós. I think it's Scandinavian. R-O with an accent S. So, if you want to know what I think is a really good song that personifies this whole bit of working our way through the confusion and also recovering from the shock, that's where I put the song today. So, enough for today. No matter how fast I talk, all the interesting things take up so much time, but we'll have more interesting things tomorrow. So, come back where we will talk about what the time means, what the people means, and get deeper into this nature of intuition and shock.